Right, we are back. Hello, everyone. Hello to the wider world. Um,
Hello, hello, hello.
how are you doing, Carlo?
I am tired. I'm tired. Occupational hazard of staying up until the middle of the night and coding until 6 a.m. and then deciding that actually you're going to try and sort out your sleep pattern and not live on American time anymore.
I've heard that living on American time is better anyway, right? So better than this shitty UK time that we live in at the moment.
It is for most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
I just turns out that I basically got to the point where I never saw the sun anymore. I got up after the sun went down, stayed up all night long, and then went to bed as soon as the sun was coming up.
I only see
it
the
was getting
sun.
it was getting ridiculous, so we're gonna have to sort it out.
To be fair, I only saw the sun out of the training room windows, so I mean, it's getting depressing. Right, we are back for more Tourney Ground. It is a Monday. It is a couple of minutes after 7, which is kind of standard. Right, so what's happened? What's happened? Is any big news come out over the weekend aside from no?
Loads, actually.
Really?
Actually, loads of stuff's been going on.
All right.
Absolutely loads.
I
Where are we starting?
I don't
Should
know.
we go
Point
with
us out.
TSL? Should we start there?
I can do, I guess. Yeah, let's go to TSL.
TSL. TSL has finished.
Yes, it has.
We ended up with 3 undefeated players.
Yep.
I am humbly among the few, humbly.
Humbly, totally.
But it's interesting because we knew for a little while, ever since a few weeks out, that that there were going to be there used to be 5 undefeated players of 5 different factions, I believe, and now there's 3 undefeated players of 3 different factions. But that's still interesting. It's interesting that that Baratheon technically wins. That Baratheon went undefeated. And actually, what I think is even more interesting is that Baratheon went undefeated, but he by majority didn't use Courtney Penrose. He is Axel Florent and Courtney. And Courtney did get used, but normally, like, to win with Baratheons, you're just spamming Courtney, basically, it seems, in the competitive scene at the moment. But Spleen has been playing a lot of games with Axel and doing really well, it seems.
Yeah, I think it is worth noting that Spleen is obviously a very, very good player. He is currently 1-0 down in the Masters, which we'll get onto later on. But Spleen is a very, very good player, and of course with the TSL, it's one of the things I've been saying to a lot of people on Discord is you can't really take the factions per se as kind of like, oh, the Baratheons are doing really well in this tournament. Well, yes, but he could have just been playing against the worst player in all of the 8 teams he faced or 9 teams he faced. So as a result,
exactly.
him just being a good player is good enough. I'd argue the same for you with the Night's Watch and Enline. Enline's Lannisters I can believe because he plays against Ariaskas a lot. Like there's evidence to suggest that he should be that good. But again, like if you're just playing, there's no way that you look at those stats that myself, you, and Van between us as a team of 3 people, we only lost 2 games. But then if you actually look at our other player in the team, he went and lost another 5. And
you're trying to say that, Reggie?
Well, no. What I'm trying to say is
weak link.
No,
weak link much.
What I'm trying to say is that like we're winning our games because we're being matched up against players we can beat, not because of the factions.
So I've played. I think I've played 1 game with my list outside of the TSL. Well, actually, I played it on the actual physical table with proxying the builders. So that played into a very easy Lannister matchup. But the 1 practice game I played against a good opponent, I played a practice game against Yannick, and he played Starks, and I lost, like, significantly so. I don't believe for a moment that my list could win a normal Swiss format tournament at all. If it got paired up against other strong lists and strong players continuously, it has very distinct flaws, in my opinion. Now, I think that they might go away, or at least you could cover a lot of them up with the Watch Marshal. I'm not saying Next Watch can't be competitive in the next quarter, that they won't ever be competitive, but this list particularly the offal list with the senior builders, it massively outperformed what I think it can actually do competitively just because of who it got matched into. It rarely had to play into Stark, so I think their direwolves can just walk over and eat the stakes. They've got all the movement that they need to like get into your sides, flanks, and your backfield, and they're aggressive enough to just one shot conscripts. Whereas most other factions can't do that. I played a very, very close game. I forget who it was now. I played a very, very close game against Drogo, a Drogo-led Targaryen game, and honestly, just straight up, I believe that if he were playing Starks, I would have lost that game. Like very similar style army in Starks would have won, because once I started killing units, he would have started to reactivate and stuff like that, and like just done so much more. But so you're right that who wins this event doesn't say that those lists are necessarily absolutely top tier competitive.
No.
But I do think it's interesting to show that. I would say it's much more reflective of the fact that people can win small local tournaments with all these armies.
Yes.
People can win local events with a Night's Watch army because the quality of players that I played into, they were good players. And that's the kind of what you'd expect to meet at your local store, not what you expect to meet in a 100 and whatever person Swiss event on TTS.
Definitely. And that's the big thing. I mean, the quality of the player in this tournament will vary. You look at the top of the top and the bottom of the bottom. I actually don't think, personally, that the results are that too dissimilar to where you would see placement of these players in a standard tournament, right? You'd see Larks and Spleen and N-Line at the top, and you did. To be honest, I know what you play like because I've played against you in real life. I would say that you deserve to be at the top. You're still yet to lose a competitive game in the UK, right? Yeah, the competitive scene in the UK. So
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah,
I mean, the record still holds, having not played a competitive game in the UK for the past 9 months.
Yes.
I don't believe anybody has. I mean, some people have, I guess, but
the point is that these are all players who have a track record of success. So it's not a surprise that we see them at the top, really.
Yeah.
To see them at the top after so many weeks just proves they can put in time after time after time. Grusalug saying that he beat N-Line last time he played him in an in-person event. Fair enough. You need to up that on the online one, Grus.
Yeah.
But there's other players up there. Affenkopf, I know, is he's a very good German player, and he's done a lot of work over there. Terrapuerta.
We see the same names at the top of every one of these events. It's getting predictable. Not necessarily who wins. Not every game is predictable, but like we're starting to recognize these players' names. You're starting to be able to predict that this person. You don't just see Larks and say Larks is going to win the event, but you see Larks and you're like, Larks will be in the top 5. Larks will be in the top 8. You know what I mean? Larks will be up there in whatever event he enters, and you can say the same of like practically nearly all the masters. Like we've seen that these players are just repeatedly. That's why they're masters. That's why they got picked, because they had high rankings, and they have high rankings because they repeatedly do well, not just did well in an event. They're repeatedly and reliably coming at the top part of these events. And that's why I think it's really, really important that we don't just track who wins an event. Like, it's a very good performance to come in the top 3, top 8, top quarter, however big your event is. Top 25% have all done very well, and they should all get like ratings and rankings and all that kind of stuff.
We feel like we both said Larks would win the event. I can't remember if we said he would, mainly because I think me and Carlo secretly knew he wouldn't because we were in his league. And so as a result, if he won, then he would have had to beat us, and nah. But he got matched up against Stannis, so I mean...
he did beat the Humbler. He did beat Stannis. He did win. Stannis. He was the only Easterosi water dancer who won his game. So.
It was.
But I'm sure we would have all desperately coached Stannis if it looked like Larks was going to win.
Yeah, definitely. But as soon as we saw, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we spoke about it last week briefly, but I remember us seeing the matchups each week, and it got to the point where we were just like ruffling in chat. It was like, ha, Stannis got Starks again, ha, ha.
Yeah,
uh,
Stannis continuously got matched up against their best performing player.
which was the
Was
Starks player,
basically the
pretty much.
which was nearly always the start player. But anyway,
So no, it
what
was
about
good
the
event.
stats on a whole? I think
It's all generated now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think more than the individual placement, the stats as a whole tell the story, tell the real story,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I mean, unsurprisingly, Starks 62% win rate, Lannisters with Mountain That Rides actually not number one, so there is that to say for them. 58% win rate, both pretty significantly high, I would say. Across a whole event like that, I wouldn't like things to be greater than fit. Like when you got this many results, we're talking about 100 and some Stark results across a whole range of players.
Yeah.
There's something like 16 different players playing Starks, 18 maybe off the top of my head. Playing 100 and something games, and they're not mirror matches. We've already taken out the Starks versus Stark matches.
Yeah.
And they're winning 62, which I think is too high. If you can break beyond 55, definitely if you're more than 60, I think that's a warning sign that the faction as a whole is just really strong.
I mean, we should always take into account, though, and we've said this quite a lot, but we should always take into account that because Targaryens in the game, which
That's
we
true.
have to argue are not a complete faction.
I mean, okay. Starks 62%, Lannisters 58%, Free Folk 53%, Night's Watch 48%, Baratheon 43%, Neutral 41%, Targaryen 23% win rate.
See, all of the others are within what I would consider.
They're acceptable. They're okay.
They're within 20% of each other, right? Just about. They're just slightly out, but
60-40. Like if somebody told you that you bet 60-40, it's okay, but 23%.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it just
so
shows.
We see what Mother of Dragons do. We see what the dragons do. You don't want the dragons to be the answer to that. You don't want dragons alone to massively shoot that win rate up to like more than 50%, because then dragons are the only competitive build. But yeah, they need something, and I guess dragons will do them something.
Talk of freedmen in the future. I mean, honestly, like we've talked about it a lot, and Bruce will sit there and tell you all day. We'll sit here and all day. I know we spoke about it with Scott and Darryl from NRG, but they just need a 5.4-point unit, something that can actually work. The Harakars, to be honest, will be more of a, in my opinion, breath of fresh air.
Will hopefully create more options in the faction rather than just like this is the new way to win with the faction. You don't want there to just be a new thing, a new commander, which is just like bang, okay, that wins.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of commanders, I mean, Joffrey played 5 times, won 4 of them, 80%. But that's not really a real 80% when you're talking about 4 wins out of 5. The real one is Howland, played 37 times in non-mirrors with a 76% win rate, which is rough. Like, that's high.
Huge.
And also forget Howland's specialism is into
mirrors.
Dark mirrors, i.e. other high performing, like he's playing mostly into other Starks who are already winning 60% of the time, and then he like wins like 76% of those games. And also he plays into himself a lot, like because he's the specialist against Starks. So nearly all Starks run Howland. And then as soon as they come up against another Stark, they just play Howland into each other.
Yeah.
But I think Howland's really showing why he's a bit of an issue. Brynden Mance, 75%, 71%, low numbers again, not really kind of big enough numbers to make big judgments on. But Rob coming at 64% win rate with 39 games played. This is the one that actually really continues to surprise me, and I don't agree with. I understand it, but I think that he's not good.
Who, Rob?
Is Renly Charismatic Heir, 63% win rate. I don't think he's good. He was played 30 times.
We saw in earlier tournaments, we saw in earlier stats that he wasn't good. he was not good in earlier tournaments in earlier stats. And if we look at the
Maybe
power
maybe
rankings,
players have adapted. I think maybe people used to run too many Rose Knights,
yeah,
and
probably,
they ended up with a really, really low activation count. I think that they've managed. Most Baratheon players have adapted into like an 8 activation list where they run 2 to 3 units of Wardens, still have some Rose Knights, and get the 3. They get 5 combat units, 3 NCUs with Renly. It's a push. It's a bare bones list, but I think it's better than the triple Rose Knights with Bolton Bastard Girls that we used to see.
yeah.
Because even though that feels stronger, the 8th activation is just really good for you, and the value in Wardens is actually just really high. Like Wardens are actually, even if they don't have huge synergy with Rob, with Renly, sorry, they're just good. They're just good for 5 points.
Yeah. And I mean, we see Charismatic Aries only just tipped over into the positive rankings here at 3.32. Now, Bloodraven absolutely trolling in chat there.
Yeah.
But
You're right. You're right, Bloodraven, in that it's not that I don't agree with the stats. It's is that you shouldn't lose to him. Don't lose. Stop losing to Renly, guys. Stop losing to Renly. Just don't charge him in the front.
yeah,
It's a trap. It's always a trap. It's a trap. Yeah.
unless you're Larks
Just-
and you desperately need to kill some Rose Knights to try and win the game because you haven't done it earlier from a flank charge. I feel I can say
Yeah.
that because yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Renly, Charismatic Air, obviously recovering there with 63% win rate. Alistair, Night's Watch. Now, obviously, you piloted that, but Night's Watch players have been kind of like been quiet on Alistair for a little bit, and he's kind of made his way
Yeah.
up into the 4, I think. So that's good to see.
Got okay numbers at 16
Yeah.
played, 10 wins. I like him. I like him myself. You know, I like him more than John. I like the Alistair Othel pairing.
Mhm.
I think he has great value and great cards and great ability as well. Great attachment
Yeah.
ability. He's got the full package. Just not. They're all good. No one part of him. You know what? The problem is he's an on-field commander. He's good, but he's an on-field commander, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So
And then you have
Othel's
the Night's
probably
Watch
better,
issue
but
where you haven't because you haven't really got that staple 5 point anymore.
yeah,
Which is something
and
slightly better than
and
conscripts.
pre watch Marshall,
Of
you're
course.
just struggling for activation count.
Yeah. Axel Florent as well doing up there. We know the builds. Obviously, Spleen's build is
Yeah,
different, but we know
I
the
was going to say,
standard
well, I
builds.
mean, Axel Florent is 16 games played, 10 wins. A huge portion of that is Spleen himself.
He's
You know,
something like
Spleen's
5 or
like
6 of those wins.
Yeah, I think he's 6 or 7 actually. He's
Oh
either
wow.
5, 6, or 7. I think I'd put it in the middle and say 6. 6 of those games and 6 of those wins, i.e., more than half of all of Axel's wins in the tournament, are Spleen himself. If you took Spleen out of it, then everybody else playing Axel Florent has about a 33% win rate. So,
Yeah.
and that's when you start to understand that we can make some judgments at 16 results, but it's still very player dependent.
Tyrion at 40 though, 50%. That's not a surprise to anybody. Tyrion's a very strong commander.
No.
But then we're starting to get to. I mean, the interesting one there is Steer just pipping by 1 percentage point. A lot less games, of course. Harmer. And
Harmer's
Tormund as well,
ranking's actually fallen right off, and Steer is the current number 1 free folk rated commander.
That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I think people have. I think more people have picked up the free folk and defaulted to running these Harmer spam lists. And they've taken what some people consider good maybes and run them, but they haven't really, because they're not maybe experienced free folk players, they haven't really considered what it means to have the free folk lists and the builds, and they don't understand the different components. I see a lot of time in Discords, people asking me about why run Jarl in Spearwives, and it's like, well, if you don't understand why that component is there, you don't understand the rest of the list. It's got nothing to do with that component. It's the rest of the list that matters most. And it's that understanding that I think is being lost. And Van from the Humble Unsmugglers, he's picked up Free Folk more casually recently as well, and he actually said the same kind of things early on. He was like, it's understanding those initial pieces makes you understand why the list works as a whole.
I've only just looked down the bottom. Oh, it's a sad tale down there.
To be fair, Davos, I believe, was piloted by Stannis twice, maybe three times.
Yeah, that's
And no, we've just bear in mind a second, because we've got to give him a bit of protection. One of those games,
100% of that is Stannis'
I
fault.
think so, yeah. One of those games he lost because he put himself in the wrong mindset, and he was actually in a winning position, and then
Wrong
he threw it away.
mindset. Oh, come
No,
on.
I've watched all
Throw
his
a pair,
games.
Stannis.
Yeah, he
Jesus
did.
Christ.
He threw the game away. He
Tilt
was in.
Central.
He decided to try and he YOLO'd in, got a really massive early lead, and then kept YOLOing, and I'm like, why? You're just gonna lose everything, and he did. And one of the other games I saw him lose is he took a 50-50 roll playing against a Stark player in Clash of Kings to end the game on turn 2, and he lost the 50-50. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
the game ended.
But I mean,
turn 2.
it's a sad tale. We see JR with 7 games played, 0 wins,
Yeah.
and we see Stannis 2 variants, total sum 7 games played, 0 wins.
Yeah.
Drogo is a very sad one with 22 games played, still very, very popular. He picked up 2 wins. That's a 9% win rate. So even by comparison to the Targaryen 23% win rate, his was terrible. Like the other Targaryen commanders must have actually done half decently just to bring the Targaryen win rate back up. Yeah, that's not great. Selmy's down there, Great John's down there. Yeah, all the things that you would expect, I guess.
It's frustrating because it goes to show, and we're going to talk about this in a little minute, but it goes to show that these commanders, like, they are competitively viable. Like, they do win games in the competitive scene. They can do it. But the problem is the builds that they're in are just simply suboptimal.
Yeah.
And that's something we're going to talk about a tournament we've got coming up that we'll talk about, and kind of like their ways of tackling that issue.
Bloodraven says Tyrion was always better for him rather than Sparrow. So what Tyrion has, if you look at Tyrion's stats, is Tyrion is basically the only Lannister commander who has a greater than 50% win rate against Stark. So Lannisters actually do reasonably well against most factions except Starks, and Tyrion is their one person who reaches above 50% against Stark.
55% against Stark.
Yeah, and he is your best answer to Starks. And if you see lots of Starks and you play in a very competitive environment, then Tyrion is one of your best choices. Whereas High Sparrow, significantly stronger against nearly all other factions. Simply put. But yeah, is what it is. He's also Tyrion's significantly stronger when used with Mountain that Rides. But I'm telling Bloodraven right now, who's the anomaly who chose not to use Mountain that Rides in a tournament where he could.
Yeah. There you go. So, yes, I think that pretty much sums up the TSL. Is there any standout? Yeah, I guess the major standout was Courtney, only got 42% win rate. For me, that's a lot lower than his rating would suggest. It's a lot lower than I would have thought, but I think this comes back to the problem, the issue with the meta. Not problem or issue really per se, but the symptom of the meta. Courtney's cards don't work if you're activated. Playing against Starks, you're going to get out-activated. Yeah. Specifically, if you're playing against Starks, you're going to get Winter is Coming and other things that just shut down Baratheon's cards.
That's interesting because we had a lower Stark entry than you would normally have in most tournaments.
Yeah.
So, Courtney should be very strong into the Lannister matchup, the Night's Watch matchup. Targaryens, absolutely so. So, yeah, it's interesting. You're right. He is lower than you would expect, especially considering that Baratheons managed to take #1 spot.
Yep.
With Courtney included. So maybe a lot of people not quite understanding Courtney as well. People, it's possible that people were forced into Baratheons as this 3rd and 4th faction in a 4-faction kind of pick across the team, and they were less familiar with them. I do believe that Baratheons are one of the toughest factions to play right now. They can be played well, but they are one of the toughest because their list building has inherent traps in it.
Yeah.
And Courtney of all commanders take quite a lot of predictive skill, I think. So Yeah, I'm making excuses for the reason why I think Courtney's brilliant, but his win rate wasn't good. So,
Yeah, we'll see. I
but
mean, we'll see. Obviously, I think it could do a lot. One thing I will say, I think it could do a lot with Champions of the Stag as well. I
yeah,
personally think that Champions of the Stag are a massive bait pick, and the extra points
yeah,
freed up with Courtney bait people into taking them. And
yeah.
I mean,
I agree. That's what I mean. Like Baratheons just at the moment have all of these pitfalls where like you think their 7 point units are brilliant, so you stick 3 of them in, and then like there's just no points for anything else, or you're drawn towards these champions of the stag because they look amazing, and then it's just like 10 points that could have been spent better. It could have been 2 units of wardens, which would have been better for you, or it could be flayed men, which I think are better for you at 9 points.
I'm going to get that generating some list advice for me. Let's see how long it takes. All right, so TSL, we'll end it there. It's been a great
Great
ride,
event.
obviously. Great event, yeah.
Yeah, really. I'm so surprised that 72 players started and 72 players basically finished. A couple of people didn't play their last couple of matches or something like that. I saw quite a few. There's a couple of retirements towards the end of the tournament, or resignations of a game without it being played. But so many less than in most events which I've seen run through TTS on this kind of scale. Normally, practically like 10% dropout by the 5th round, and we went 9 rounds with nobody dropping out, and that speaks volumes for like the value of the team aspect and the fact that it keeps people engaged and involved in the tournament.
Yeah. Just doing a check there, unless I've got my numbers wrong, which must be wrong. But there's nine games that have not been verified or recorded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9 games, which could be a misnomer, could be just a small thing there from verified games and things like that. But to have 9 games across the whole tournament, not go ahead.
Yeah,
that's really good. That's perfect. Yeah. That's 1 game per round, which if you think it sounds like a lot, that's superb given it's 32 tables. It's a tiny proportion. Right. Okay. So that is the TSL. Obviously, it's been great, and the Humble Onion Smugglers were officially the best. We've got to get this in. We've got to do the bit of the bragging, right? There's a reason we do these stat sites.
Score.
Yeah, we perfected it. Maximum points every week.
We set Tourney Ground up just for this, so we could humbly brag.
Of course.
Humbly brag about the fact that perfect score.
Yep. And we are looking for a replacement.
Come at me, Team Poof.
Yeah, come at us, Steve. There's no one good on Team Poof anyway. I've heard.
Yeah.
Actually, Stannis beat.
Stannis beat Furioku. We hit the 3-eyed roosters. We hit the 3-eyed roosters so hard that they ended up in 5th place.
We did. Stannis beat Furioku in the Masters. If we play against Team Poof, Stannis might actually win a game against a competitive side because he beat Furioku in the Masters.
He did beat Furioku in the Masters.
And Bloodraven doesn't know how to play Lannisters, clearly.
But he had to sell his soul, and oh no, that's the wrong tournament.
Yeah.
That's second time in a couple of weeks that he's beaten Furioku, right?
Yeah. And Furioku's playing Stark.
No, Bloodraven, we retired the victors. We're not coming back for next season.
Yeah, we quit. No, we will see. Obviously the whole fatigue thing. We'll talk about it, but
yeah, genuinely,
Stannis is looking for a replacement though if the league starts in the next month.
What tournament's next? What are we going to? Should we talk about Masters?
We will talk about Masters.
Yeah,
I've got a bone to pick with you about Masters as well.
Do you?
Yeah. Mainly because.
What's that?
Nothing major. It's
nothing major. Just bring it up on chat live. Put me on the spot.
Nah, it's not putting on the spot at all. You asked us if anyone was available to do games, and you were like, I was like, yeah, go on, I'll sort it out. And so I set myself an alarm. I got up, came downstairs at 5 to 11 to to record it. I
asked Energy which game they wanted.
I know.
Which game do you want? To which you responded, we want the Saturday game. I was like, cool. So I gave the Sunday game to 3 sales.
To be fair, it's literally completely fine. Obviously, it's great to have. We're always going to have the casters doing it. But yeah.
Anyway,
Daryl's a nightmare. Right.
Bazu versus George. Bazu versus Open City. Bazu versus 3 Sales Gaming. Whatever. Chris Gatt versus George.
Yeah.
St. Pierre.
Yep.
Third place game was quite a big win for Bazu in the end, right?
Yeah. He it looked like it was going to be okay for George, but Bazu wasn't having any of it. He didn't fall for the bait and switch kind of plays that we saw Larks nearly fall into, I think, and Bazu just hit him.
Yeah.
And that's the way. I mean, like that was the way we saw Larks struggle a lot with it, with the Champions of the Stag, right? Going back to the Champions of the Stag, the reason I wanted to bring this up, hey, they currently have a less than 40% win rate from close to 100 matches. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not good for a start.
Yeah.
And one thing, I mean, it's
So
worse
just
than
out of
Sentinels.
interest, how does that compare to Wardens and Rose Knights?
So it's worse than Wardens. Compared to Rose Knights, it's Rose Knights have got nearly 500 results, but 55% win rate. And Wardens, they're even 5 percentage points lower than Wardens.
Yeah.
At 44.
Yeah.
So I mean,
what about Wardens without an attachment? I bet you that's higher.
Wardens
Nearly
without an
every unit
attachment, 47%.
47.
Yeah. But this is the point I'm trying to make. Like Champions of the Stag, like they are one of the, if it's sort by win rate purely, I mean ignoring the ones that have got virtually no pick rates, you go straight down to the bottom, and it's Stag Knights, Stormcrow Mercenaries, and Champions of the Stag. You are talking about Champions of the Stag being in the same category as Stag Knights in terms of quality.
And worse than Sentinels.
Yes, worse than Sentinels.
Worse than the unit that everybody complains about.
Yeah. Now, this is what I'm going to say about about Open City versus Bazu. Open City did a lot of work, and to be honest, he played the Champions of the Stag as well as he could. And we saw it in the Larks game. I was commentated on that and said it throughout. Those Champions of the Stag took up 3 of Larks' resources on the field, and Larks didn't do anything about them.
Yeah.
George could very easily have won that game because George made that clever play, and he forced Larks into that position. Larks didn't do anything. Larks nearly lost. Now, thankfully, the other flank, he managed to do a nice charge, turned it around, game over. But the point of the fact is, George tries that same technique with the Champions of the Stag in the next game, tries to use them as the buffer. Look, this is the thing that you have to deal with. And Bazu just goes, okay, I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kill it. Because you can. And even then, I think they ended up actually not being one of the units that didn't die on the flank or something. I can't even remember exactly what happened.
Just tied them up. You just tie them up. You trap them. You don't make them not want to move. You give them some trash. Give them some raiders. But these things are enough to threaten them. Maybe bring them down in rank so that it takes resources to heal them. But really you just want them tied up. Just tie them up.
And just go
tie them up. Leave them to do nothing. They won't do 10 points worth of stuff. No. Definitely not against free folk. You're not going to get through 10 points worth of raiders with them.
No. So yeah, we saw the Bazu versus Open City, and it was a bit of a whitewash. Not because George didn't play well, but because I think that I think the matchup's just not particularly even.
No, Dance with Dragons is not good. Not good for the Baratheons either, because the movement 4 is a bit of a pain for them.
Although he did get there first, I believe. George didn't end up actually getting there first, if I remember rightly. But it ended up not helping. Right. But Larks versus Spleen.
Yeah.
Game
Larks
1.
versus Spleen. 1 of 3 have been played.
Yeah. Now, spoilers ahead, guys. If you haven't seen the first game, go check it out. It is on George's Twitch channel, 3 Cells Gaming.
Yeah.
It probably
I don't think it's up on YouTube yet or anything like that.
Oh, Bazu did reach the objectives first. Fair enough. I thought he might have done. Now, after I said it, I realised I might realise that. I think he's uploaded.
So for those who don't know, the Masters Final is a 3-game series. Game 1 was on Sunday.
Sunday. 11 o'clock.
And Game 2 and Game 3 will be Saturday and Sunday next weekend. That's when it will be decided. It's 11 a.m. UK time every time.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice and easy. Thanks for that nice, easy set of
timings.
Set of agreements on times, guys. It is currently 1-0 to Lark. Interesting matchup. They played Dance with Dragons just like Bazu and Open City did. and it ended up, what was it? Was it 11-7 or something like that?
11-8. No, 11-7.
Quite a strong score line to Larks. Got any comments about that game?
Yeah. I think. I mean, Larks played the matchup well. Larks noticed where he had to take an advantage, and he took that advantage. And I wouldn't even say he did a risky play. He just played that thing that he needed to do, and it worked out averagely exactly how it should have worked out. Thanks to the play he made and the way he did it, he was able to even make the play better by the Rob unit of Sworn Swords failing an early panic check, dropping the token, releasing another victory point away from the issue, and also giving 2 VPs away. 2 VP swing, which is huge, and also enabling Larks to turn off an NCU, enabling his next turn 1 play. Like, that whole failed morale test
was huge, actually.
Was actually huge.
Just in terms of
cascaded
guaranteeing that Larks could do what he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a big play. I think that Spleen was impatient and made and when he moved Rob up into that position, I think he made a mistake. I think, I said it at the time that I thought it was a mistake. It's easy to say afterwards, after Rob gets shot and loses a token and stuff like that. But we were talking about the game at the time, and I was saying that I think that he should have been patient because he was winning the game on the other flank, and he wanted to and he was holding that side into something of a stalemate because the archers were in position to sort of counter the Cranogs, though that's really hard because basically whoever shoots first roughly wins in that situation. He's got the Outriders, which eventually pressured into the archers. But basically, once he moved Rob up, he needed to keep the archers in support of Rob. Otherwise, they're going to get Cranogged into next week. To be honest, they got Cranogged into next week anyway. But because they had to stay up there, the Outriders also got into the archers, and that whole thing fell apart. Whereas I think if he's more conservative with Rob, doesn't try and grab the token, instead he protects against the move that could come. He can also be defensive with the archers against the play that's going to come. He just has to waste. He has to waste Larks' turn where Larks goes first, wastes Larks' tempo turn, and plays for turn 4 or 5 or whichever turn it was. Just delay that by 1 turn and know that you're winning with the Tully Cavaliers on the opposite flank.
Yeah.
I think if he'd been more patient, then the game would have been very, very close. And he just could have put it in a situation where Larks had to make a decision. I feel like nearly every time. I mean, he's very, very patient, very, very precise, very, very good player. But I feel like every time I watch Larks do something, and you were just hinting at it with George, really.
Yeah.
The other player never makes Larks make a choice. George did. He made Larks try and he forced Larks to eventually have to commit to try and fight these champions of the Stag. Whereas most players just like make a glaring mistake and let Larks just like jump upon it and destroy them. Whereas I felt that Spleen had got himself into a situation where he was able to dictate that Larks would have to make the risky play, and then he gave up the position.
Yeah. The other thing, and I mentioned in chat there, talking about objectives with Tully Cav, obviously always a risky thing because it takes away the movement. But another thing that was really glaring was that the Wolves for Spleen did literally nothing.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember when I saw Spleen use his area to reposition his bowman, he was using the wolf to guard the flank, and I was looking at it being like, that's stupid. That wolf's on 1 health. Walder's just going to come down straight away and kill it. Like, that wolf doesn't exist. Pretend the wolf isn't there, because he's not protecting anything.
Yeah. So I think going... so it's interesting that Spleen chose that Rob list into Starks. He has a Howland list. I don't know if he thinks that he doesn't have the that Howland is not in his favor, just like the list mechanics on like the specific matchup isn't in his favor in that case, or why he doesn't want to take Howland. And I think it's going to be super, super interesting to see what he does into Feast for Crows. the next game on Saturday. See again. It again has the 2 points objectives for having an on-field commander. He may feel similarly compelled to take the same list. If he does, I would really like him to basically be aggressive with his dogs. It requires him to have devastating impact, really, but I would like him to use his dogs to hunt the other dogs, because his dogs are dead in the water versus Howland cards and Walder, whereas Larks are completely safe. He doesn't run Walder, and he's playing Rob, so he doesn't have any way to pressure a dog that's sat in the backfield, and that way he loses activations throughout the game. And basically, I think he wants to trade them as early as possible if he can. He wants to get into a position where he can devastating impact his dog into another dog. Really, and I think he should play that over using his Tully Cavaliers in that way.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Interesting, Blood Raven saying that a No Wolf Stark could be a list to beat Howland. Yes, I have a Stark list which is purely designed to beat Free Folk, which basically doesn't run any dogs, but it still can get something like 9-10 activations, because you've got access to such cheap stuff, and you can run Howland if you want as well.
But why are Starks still the answer to Starks? That's the problem. Why are Starks the answer to Starks? Why is somebody else not the answer to Starks?
I agree. I mean, I can run Free Folk lists all day that can counter Starks, but there's not much I can do if a Berserker unit comes devastating impact towards me.
Yeah,
you just can't stop.
That's the real thing.
The real issue is not Starks. It's certain components. And I mean, let's just face it, and I know we talk about this a lot, but Berserkers are just a stupid thing to have in the game. They're something you can basically never one-shot, and they hit harder the more damage they are. Nothing in the game has that mechanic, except the Dragonstone Noble, who has got 3 wounds.
Yeah.
And you can one-shot that very easily. A Berserker unit can never be one-shot really.
Berserkers. Armor is not important. So the fact that they got that low armor doesn't matter at all. What they have is they have high survivability because of great morale.
Yep.
They have 6 speed as infantry in a deck with all the movement mechanics you could possibly want. They're only 7 points. Jesus, they barely even. Them with Bran and Hodor in cost you 9 points, and you get 2 activations. That's still cheaper than most people can possibly buy 2 activations for. Yes, okay, one of them doesn't do anything, but that one does so much that it doesn't matter. They're the perfect storm. Like Berserkers are the real issue.
Yeah.
But we don't. But crazily, we don't actually see Larks isn't running them. Spleen's not running them. They're running Tully Cav. People are running Tully Cav, or they're running cheap stuff. So.
But the problem for other factions, again at the Howland mirror, you don't run Berserkers. But for everyone else, let's look at Larks' other list. Oh, Umber Berserkers with Roderick. Umber Berserkers with Brynden. It's straight away double Berserkers. Let's look at Spleen's other list. I mean, Spleen running is House Tully Cavaliers twice. Another very good 9-point unit. But then his other list, Umber Berserkers.
I saw somebody in Discord asking about a Brynden list, or Mickey still was talking about his tournament. He's saying hopefully we'll see some new lists, and someone said, I want to see a Brynden list, and the instant response was, it's Brynden in Umbers. That's what you do. Like, it's easy. It's not a Tully list. You don't run Tully lists. You run. Well, that's the craziest thing about Starks. Rob Stark synergizes with all the Tully stuff. The Tullys synergize with all the Umber stuff.
Yep. And Umber, Great John Umber doesn't synergize.
Anti-synergy with themselves, But God. All right, it'll get fixed. Hopefully,
it will.
God, I hope they get nerfed back into next week. I really do, because then.
Yeah.
We'll see something different.
I think
that's all. I just want to see something different. I'm ready for something else.
For what it's worth, I actually genuinely think Starks being nerfed will indirectly nerf Free Folk as well. because specifically all of those builds that you're worrying about to try and take on Starks, you don't have to worry about that anymore, and you can focus on better mechanics to deal with free folk. And they are out there. Like, mechanics to do with free folk exist. The problem is the mechanics to do with free folk are not the same as the ones to deal with Starks.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue.
Technically, Grisalug, I think most people would take Knights of Castle Rock over Tully Cavaliers.
For the pointless, probably.
Like, if you could pick units from any faction, like, if, you know, they're valued less because Lannisters can't make as much of Knights of Castle Rock as Rob can of Tully Cavaliers. You never see double Tullys without Rob because he allows them to come back out of combat and recharge and all that shit. But
he's a Targaryen player. Rob's a Targaryen, as it turns out. You just have hit and run.
Yeah,
literally. So yeah. Okay, we'll move on anyway.
Yeah, let's move on.
World Cup.
So Stark Mirror. It's two brilliant Stark players. And what's actually interesting is from game one, they both play in a very different style. Game one, it went to Larks. I would say Spleen made a mistake. He could have had a chance in that game. Game two, he could play the same strategy and make no mistakes. And it might be closer. Or he might panic and play Howland. Or, you know, have a plan and play Howland. But I don't know why he wouldn't have played him in the first matchup.
Yeah.
But would in the Crows. Like Dance with Dragons and Feast for Crows aren't that different.
Not really.
In terms of like you basically get to a token and hold it. Like
I guess
there's two of them instead of three of them.
I guess the major difference Rob doesn't have the infantry. He can't control the placement of the corpse piles at all with his Rob list because he would require losing Rob or the bowman. If he's losing Rob or the bowman, then that's a real big issue. Whereas, let's face it, you can lose one of the unit, the Tully Sworn Swords from Larks. He might not want to lose them, but he can afford to. It's not that big a deal.
What other events?
Well, World Cup. The World Cup. We've got a pit stop at the World Cup because
have I said it on here?
Yes.
No,
you haven't said it on here, but you've said it in Stats Chat.
Yeah, I've said it loads of other places. It is delayed. It is postponed until January 2021. Says it right there.
Yeah.
Postponed. The regional part. The regional part will be in January now instead of the knockout part being in January and the regionals being in November because they were supposed to start in about a week, but everybody seemed entirely unenthusiastic for that. Yeah. So that's been postponed. In its place, 1,000,001 tournaments have sprung up.
Yeah, that didn't take long, did it?
No, which is why I put it at that time. So we'll see how popular these tournaments end up being. What have we got? We got Wolves Howling 2.
Yes, Wolves Howling 2. Let's have a look.
Wolves Howling 2, which is another charity event. I believe Furyoku's put a ton more information about the charity there.
Yeah.
Another great cause. So whether you're playing, not playing, it's free to enter. There's a big prize pool put up by Furyoku, and all he asks is that if you can, you give to this charity. So, you know,
and it's for,
do a good thing.
For a guy called Olek in Polish, who's fighting with spinal muscular atrophy. So it's all going to, in my opinion, very good charity. So, yeah. Standard kind of tournament that you see. We've got 6 rounds, and we've got the 6 modes there, random ordered, and
not entirely standard. 9 days per round. Not 100% sure on that part, but
that could be a Furyoku thing. But yeah, you've got 9 days for a round. It's all fairly standard stuff though, but they are allowing Kickstarters and the unreleased stuff. Dun.
Yeah, everybody keeps clicking allow unreleased. According to the builder, it's not unreleased anymore. According to the builder, it's all in the game. So unreleased doesn't mean anything anymore. Every single thing that was in the builder that was flagged as unreleased is no longer flagged as unreleased.
Yeah.
That button actually does nothing.
No,
Kickstarter exclusive still does something,
yeah, not in final.
and not final things are still not final. But
Yeah.
everything that was unreleased has now been released or is about to be released in quarter 4 and has been entirely spoiled. The only thing we actually need to work out is we need to find out. I don't know. Nobody's really spoken about it. We need to find out whether or not the Red Priestess is changing. That's all we need to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
No official word from that as well, in case you weren't
Of
aware.
course. Of course, there's no official word, Mickey. Come on. It's not like they're coming out in like a week and
I
they
know.
still haven't been announced officially by Simon.
I know. Don't get me started. I try to be positive nowadays. I try to
I
be
know.
positive.
Yeah. We'll gloss over it.
Yeah, but in case people weren't aware, the Red Priestess from the R'hllor Faithful and the Red Priestess in the attachment boxes have different wording on their cards.
Yeah. One is panicked and vulnerable, and the other one is panicked or vulnerable.
Yeah. Now that might seem like, oh, is that an oversight? The problem is those two things are very different.
For the whole card's new. Like every part of the card, the artwork on the card is new. Even like it used to say Red Priestess on one line, and now it says Red Priestess on 2 lines. So like they've totally rebuilt the card. So it's possible that they actually put in a mistake while rebuilding the card. But the reason why it seems like it's a mistake is because they both say version 1.5 on the card.
Yeah.
So, and we're in version 1.6 now. And if you were going to change a card, like actually change its rules, then it shouldn't say 1.5.
Or at least
like she has already been released. She isn't an unreleased model. You know, we're not talking about they leaked some cards early by accident. She was in the R'hllor Faithful, and it said 1.5 then, and now she's in the attachment box, and it says 1.5 there, but it says different rules on it.
I'd be tempted. So people saying think the new one is right. I would disagree completely. I think the old one is more correct, and that's because of the formatting. And that the old one is the one that's on the app, of course. If in doubt, use the War Council app. It is the official rulings, obviously, on all these things. But the official app uses that formatting on the card. And when I say that formatting, the bolded where it needs to be bold, the bits that are italicized. The new one doesn't appear to show that. It doesn't have those bolding and italicizations. That's not correct, but you'd expect. So yes, double check though. We will be keeping an eye on that because it's obviously quite important. I think to see it's different.
So at the moment, she is very, very popular. She is probably the most powerful thing on the Stannis side, but she isn't winning tons of games. It's not like Stannis is top tier because of her. And actually, the only thing that makes her feel broken or feel too good is the combination with Bolton Bastard Girls.
Yeah.
Inside of the combination with other Baratheon things, she's not that brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they make it then she won't get used anymore.
I would agree. I mean, I think she's a very good 1 point attachment.
Yeah.
My problem.
Okay is all. It's okay, but I mean, like, nobody's ranting and raving about stuff that lets you put down
a single token.
Put down a vulnerable token at a 1 point attachment that lets you put down a vulnerable token at the start of any turn.
Outrider codes, you mean? You mean outrider codes, exactly. which get to place 1
point attachment. Nobody's saying that's amazing, right? Yeah, they get used, but they're not brilliant. But if you make her one or the other, yeah, she can do one or the other. But you're talking about having to pass a morale test to do it, and then lose a wound and retake the test if you fail. Like, inside of her own synergetic units, she's still mediocre.
The only difference is the Baratheon deck makes you attack more than once per round. But to be honest, you're still going to use them in Bastard Girls, if anywhere, because they're still the best unit for them.
She's probably a little bit too good because we see her like spammed inside wardens and stuff like that, which like shouldn't be the place that she should want to be. she's a little bit too common. She's like the only 1-point attachments that Stannis side Baratheons use.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she'll be non-existent if she actually changes, and Stannis side will just get kicked right in the teeth. Like
They're not already not doing good. So I mean,
yeah, the Dragonstone Noble is decent and an okay buff, but there's not enough there still on that Stannis side to be competitive in most senses of the word.
So anyway, we'll move on from that, and we will talk about some of the other tournaments that are coming up. What's going on?
We've got the French Masters. The French
TTS Masters,
French
right?
have decided to run their Masters event, which is 8 of their best tabletop rated players and 8 of their best TTS rated players. Yeah, we see some Targaryens, and they're all fielding new dragons and Daenerys.
I'm interested in Chabalu's lists. Chabalu, we've seen him a couple of tournaments. He runs Daenerys, Mother of Dragons, and Daenerys, Mother of Dragons.
Yep.
Are these lists even? So one with Blackguard and Varys Walder Tycho. One with Dervishes, pre-Varys Tycho. Huh.
That what he thinks is the new Targaryen meta.
Yep. There we go.
We'll see. That'll be interesting because they're pretty good players. You know, like for a community of just one country, they're very strong.
I'd like to see how well Exodius does with his Howland list and a Great John list.
Yeah.
And 2 NCUs.
Yeah.
We will see how that goes.
I will be very interested.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of an in-joke there.
Yeah.
And yeah, but as Exodius was actually saying, you know, because we were talking about, he came and talked about the French scene and stuff like that, saying that Starks aren't that popular in France, and the Stark entries aren't that high. I mean, we've got the Targaryen entries because of the new Mother of Dragons, but we actually have a lot of Night's Watch, so we'll see what happens there. There's a lot of Watch Marshal in there. I had a quick look. A lot of people favoring Ranger Trackers with Watch Marshal and just higher activation counts in general. We're seeing 9 activation Night's Watch coming out quite a bit and stuff like that. So interested to see.
Yeah, I notice a significant lack in those Night's Watch lists there. Oh wow!
Maybe I was. Yeah, I think I was looking. I think I maybe looked at Viking Tony and just saw them flood the screen.
Yeah, so I mean, the problem I've got is that I don't see a single senior builder.
Yeah. Problems. Come on, guys.
How
people?
Why do people not rate something that can place terrain in the middle of a game? Maybe me and you have missed something, Carlo. With your clear winning of, clear good success rate in the TSL, maybe we've stumbled onto something that nobody else thinks is good.
We.
I was saying senior builder was good as well. Oh come on, you.
Mickey's always claiming some kind of ownership of all the good shit I do.
Go back and watch the Tabletop Warden thing where we talk about the spoilers. I sit there and say, senior builder, he looks sick. I said it there. I said if it was 1 point, it'd be amazing. If it was 2 points,
calling him out.
And I've got the proof. No, I was legit. I mean, we talked about it at the time, didn't we? I was legit really happy when you built senior builder list because I was like, yeah, that's like incredible. Right. Anyway,
I think the new builder Scorpion attachment is super good as well. So, but if you consider the builder a tax on that, then I can see why you wouldn't want to take it.
I think the builder is worth the tax. So that's the thing for a 1 point attachment. He's worth it.
Carl's saying that people rate Offals better than seniors, but I mean, Offals
I've seen people say that.
The horse part has really good value in Offal's list, but but you almost never get charged. That part doesn't get used. It's the horse part, which allows you to push people around on the tactics board. But I feel like you're always going to be able to make somebody move within 12 inches of you. You're just going to get a free shot every turn. And if not, then you're just dominating the battlefield. If you're not coming within a 12-inch radius of you.
At any
Ever.
time. No, it's just at any time. That's the thing. Like, it's not even like, oh, you're within 12 at the last activation, and then you can activate first on the next turn. No, I still get to shoot you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right, Carl. If you're just talking public opinion, but public
Yeah.
are wrong. You know, what can I say?
They're
People
the main,
don't know.
Without
People
shaming
don't
them
know
too hard.
The
main
power of
Discord
the senior.
main Discord's full of people who don't know what they're talking about. And I feel like I can say that now, with tournament results under our belt. Right. Okay. So that's the French TTS Masters. What else is going on? There's a Slovenian Masters.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Did I recognize a couple of names who'd signed up?
Osterman and Eagle, Malleus? Never heard of these people.
Yeah, maybe. I think they're both a bit more new to the Discord. I have Illegal did send me some messages asking.
Yeah, I think he posted once or twice asking for some things.
I think he's newer. I don't know how many players they have. Hopefully they'll see some more sign up.
That's cool.
I mean, it's on TTS. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, not complaining about that. So yeah, if you're from Slovenia, get yourself involved in that. That's the Van Van's tournament, isn't it, up in Jakarta? He's running a one-day event, isn't he?
Another on the table league. Yeah, so we got some. We have got some physical events coming up, which have been on the cards on the calendar for a long time. There's a smallish league in Singapore. That one there. There is there's the Winter is Coming at Gamers Haven. That's Sunday Slaughter, and also close enough that all the guys from Small Council Radio will be there and stuff like that. So a lot of names that you will have heard of.
Who's the admin? I've never heard of him.
I don't know.
No.
Never heard of him.
No, I never heard of him. Anyway, so we got the classics. Dakota's going to be there. Bob who? Yeah. Dakota's going to be there. We've got other names. Actually, I've heard of.
Oh, of course, yeah. Wildcard Carl, Roll 'em if you got 'em. Group is also involved around that area. Yeah, a whole lot of content creators there. So.
Mekla's going to be there as well. Yeah.
All recognizable names. So it'll be interesting. Be a good tournament. I think it'll be quite competitive. I think they've all been throwing down the gauntlet quite a lot to each other. They've all been playing on TTS a lot, or at least like a good number of them have, and have definitely upped their game. So I think it'll be one of the most competitive ones there. And yet, as Carl is talking about, what I was actually going to say is other than the physical ones, there's been a lot of talk about, or just straight up request, people want to play another 50-point tournament.
Yeah.
So maybe if Carl's not gonna do it himself, then maybe I'll organize that one.
Well, I can give you a hand with it if you want. Not do anything else, but we can definitely sort that out, can't we? But yeah, that won't be a problem. We'll run it. We'll look at that. We could use the new ELO system as the 50-point tournament.
We could. Oh yeah, that's another tournament that's running. What's Mickey Sters one called?
Battle on the Whispering Sound. We were actually going to talk about this for quite a long time, I believe, when we originally set out today. Battle on the Whispering Sound. He's already got 13 to 32. Wow. 13 of 32 players. This is an event running from mid-November through to essentially Christmas. And it is a 40-point tournament spanning 5 game modes. And they're no entry free tournament. It is your choice of faction. You get to choose what faction you play. Unless...
And commanders and all that stuff.
And yeah, all that thing. Unless you're above 1550 rated. If you're above 1550 rated, you get a random faction. And not only do you get a random faction, it cuts out Starks, Free Folk, and Targaryens of all people. Now, Starks and Free Folk.
You don't You don't want people playing that low-rated faction and making them look good.
I know, right? Starks and Free Folk, I can kind of understand. Targaryens, I don't understand, but I know why he's done it.
People believe that Mother of Dragons is just going to change the game and break the game.
Yeah.
Like, this just seems to be an undercurrent right now. Like, everybody has written Mother of Dragons off as unplayably overpowered without ever... Maybe they have played it. If you have played it,
please tell
then
us.
submit your results, because you haven't submitted your results, like, flat out. Nobody... Like, there are, like, 4 games submitted to Mother of Dragons. She's been up on the site for, like, 2 weeks. Everybody claims to have played battle reports and practiced with her and whatever. Nobody's submitting these results because I believe nobody believes that she will be balanced. But we won't know until you submit the results. And you know what? Just the same as Melisandre, Roose, Axel combo that everybody thought was going to break the game, it doesn't. Just like Stone Throwers, everybody thought was going to break the game, it doesn't. It might be a negative play experience. I will never deny that. It might be unfun to play against, but it probably isn't winning as many games as you think it was.
So Mother of Dragons is up at 7.39 and Daenerys, Queen of Marine, is down at minus 5.44 relative to the Targaryen faction numbers. So Daenerys is still off the pace by a long way compared to most other heroes.
She's still technically rated at like minus 75.
Yeah. Like, I personally believe that dragons are strong. I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. But I am yet to see any compelling evidence to suggest that they are too strong. But yes, please, if you're playing these games, even if they're practice games, guys, you can still submit it as a score on the website. And then, even if you don't put it as a ranked game, even if it doesn't change your ELO, anything like that, at least it can add to the data pool and we can get a better understanding of what is going on. Because right now, the dragons...
No idea.
Really don't look that good. Like, they look, from what we can see, they're better than everything else Targs can have, but
they haven't changed anything yet. We will see once the first tournament there. I'll be interested because the French Masters, a set of good players, they're playing with them. We'll see how they do in that tournament. There are other events. Once the events start to kick off, then people will use them because they'll be paired against them and they can't not submit their results, right?
Yeah.
You can't not submit your result when it's in a tournament. And you can't choose to say, oh, I'm not playing against dragons because they're overpowered. Plus, we'll probably see a relatively high number of entries into tournaments because people have been wanting to play them for ages. Plus, people think they're strong and will think that they can win the tournament with them. So we will see how well they do, but I don't think they're going to do as well as you think they are. I do think they're strong. I do think that certain factions are going to get absolutely dunked on. Like, and if you don't change the way you build your lists with Baratheons, if you don't change the way you build your lists with Lannisters, I think you're in for a really, really rough time. Yeah. But the top performing Free Folk, Stark, stuff like that, I think they'll be fine. Like they'll counter them. They've got movement abilities, either too many bodies or too good morale to care that much and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that is the Battle on the Whispering Sound. I noticed Makista popped up in chat there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The game modes are Fire and Blood, Here We Stand, Dance of Dragons, Feast for Crows, and he's actually put it open up to discussion and voting on Game of Thrones or No Foe Shall Pass. And he's put that one.
That discussion is an aside about whether or not Mother of Dragons should be considered in the pool of things that the top-rated players don't get given. So whether or not Targaryen should be in that. But actually, there's a whole different discussion, which is the intent, roughly, from Makista, is to force the top-rated players, if they want to enter the event, to be innovative. To pick up the factions that aren't doing as well, and to build new lists with them, and to challenge the established winning lists by building something new. So I think that is a very interesting idea and concept. I think that it's quite a heavy-handed way of doing it, and I had just last week announced and created a different way that it can be done, which is the ELO rated, which is an ELO handicap tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is, I don't know whether or not he'd already decided to do the tournament or he doesn't like the ELO rated. It's right down at the bottom.
Oh,
under
there we go.
special.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to make it an ELO handicapped event?
Of course I do. And the way this works, if I'm explaining it from my perspective, and the way I understand
Yeah,
it.
we'll see if Mickey understands it first.
I know, right?
It's the litmus test of whether or not I've explained it very well.
Essentially, it compares the relative ELO of this player, player A, to the relative ELO of player B, taking into account obviously commander rating is the big one, and it does take into player rating as well.
No,
it doesn't take into player rating.
So it doesn't penalize you. So it doesn't penalize you for being a higher rated player.
Okay. So it takes into account your commander rating, which of course is your faction rating as well, because they're one and the two now basically, and then it awards you points based on the predicted performance that you've had in that game relative to the outcome, it would say. So if you were to play Howland and you beat Drogo, and it was like a crushing victory, it would go, brilliant, you did really well there, here's a little bit of a point, because that was basically a foregone conclusion. You proved the statistics right. Whereas if Drogo beat Howland, and if Drogo got a crushing victory against Howland, he could probably win the tournament with just one game under his belt because he just did that well. There's a completely unrealistic.
It's not quite that. It's not quite that extreme, no. But yeah, basically your tournament points and your secondary points that you normally get assigned. Your 3 points for a win, 1 point for a loss. 0 to 4 secondary points. To Chris Eustace, who just asked, no, it's not fixed at tournament creation. It happens during every game. So as the game gets submitted, it decides what the relative ELOs of the two commanders are, which includes factions. It ignores the players, because it normally includes the players in working out how much ELO value to give each player. So this is a calculation that the site does every single time somebody does a submission, when it calculates how much rating to give you. But normally it's not applied to the tournament. So what we see players not getting many ranking points for entering these tournaments with the top rated commanders again and again and again, but they're winning the events, so they keep entering the events with the same commanders because they win the event, and that's what they care about. They don't care, or possibly they don't even notice that they're not getting anywhere near as many ranking points as they would if they played with a lower rated commander. As it currently stands with the current kind of system, as you were saying, if Howland were to play Drogo and get a crushing victory, the Howland player would score less points for that crushing victory than the Drogo player got for a crushing loss, because the multiplier is greater than 2 for that difference in ELO. That difference in ELO is something like plus minus 400.
Yeah.
Meaning that the game is supposed to be won by Howland like 90% of the time. So it's like, who cares if you win that game? Like, it is so predictable that Howland wins that game that it's not worth playing. And what it means is you have to pick lower rated commanders. You can play Howland if you want. That's fine. You can play Starks. You can play Rob.
You lose
can
one
win
game,
all your games. You can win every game by crushing victory. You will not win the tournament. Flat out, you will probably get less points than the Targaryen who entered and lost every game, because your multiplier will be so bad. If you play a top rated commander, you can only underperform what the site thinks you're going to do, because the site expects you to crushing win everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is big. And now, you're saying about fixed rating at tournament creation. Now, the reason it's not fixed rating, I know some people are getting a bit saying people say it should, people say it shouldn't. The reason we don't use fixed rating is, firstly, it's not massively practical for Carlo to code that in, because it's all live. It does it all live anyway. So basically taking a snapshot, although possible, and something we've talked about in the past, you can definitely take a snapshot of the data. But that in itself is no longer calling the live data. So it's a whole new set of things to have to code on the back end, as well as a nightmare to have to then store that. But there's that side of it, so an ease perspective. But also, the whole point is, throughout the tournament, these commanders, if they're doing well, will go up in points. So
Yeah.
actually, later on, when you're playing against these, oh, I'm playing against a Drogo player, but actually Drogo's gone up a load of points, so this is now worth me playing this game. Whereas at the
Exactly.
start,
The ELO is the most current, up to date, accurate prediction of how strong that commander is.
yeah,
It's not trying to fuck you over. It's not trying to do whatever to you. But if you picked a commander only because they were low rated and suddenly everybody's winning with them, well, you shouldn't be getting rewarded for them being low rated anymore because everybody's winning with them. Like, everyone's winning with this commander, then it's not as weak as the system used to think it was.
hmm
So, so basically, but the point is the modifier is not that big, except in the extreme circumstances.
yeah, Howland
All it will
Drogo, for
do is
example.
it just says, don't play the people right at the top anymore. Just play the people in the middle and the bottom. These are the ones, and more importantly, it will help to determine like who really is the bottom and who's in the middle, because most of the commanders at the bottom are at the bottom because they keep getting absolutely whooped by the guys at the top, not because they ever play against each other. Um, and
Interestingly,
also as to the thing, it
mm,
allows that you could play Mother of Dragons. One of the reasons actually why I hadn't already launched it a bit earlier is because I do believe that Mother of Dragons is underrated right now. I don't think she's as strong as people think, but I don't think she's a minus 75 ELO rating. But that will quickly correct itself during the tournament. So if you pick Mother of Dragons just because you think, oh, there's a way to exploit the system right now, 2 weeks later into the event, you won't have that exploitation anymore.
yeah,
It fixes itself. That's what ELO does. It fixes itself.
and that's obviously why we're using it. And these are all the extremes, of course. If you were to pick, I don't know, let's just take Vargo in Night's Watch, who's just the one there that's right in front of me. But Vargo in Night's Watch, as the 34th ranked player, a ranking of about 4 points. If you were to pick that and to play, I don't know, against Ramsay Stark, who's currently 7th best on the list at 83 points, even that, the rating's only 80-point difference.
Stick it into the match predictor.
Sure. So 4 versus, I'm just going to approximate, 4 versus 83, what was it? Stark. Oh, I'm going to play Night's Watch Vargo, aren't I? That's it.
Yeah, because you're crazy.
Yeah, you're playing Stark Rob? No,
Why am I playing Stark Ramsey?
You're playing Stark
Why
Ramsey.
am I the Stark?
So it's nearly 50%.
Yeah. Like, and that means that your modifier is basically 1. Like, so this game isn't a bad. It barely does anything to this thing, but as soon as you're playing somebody properly bad against somebody properly good, it's like you've got 24% win rate and your modifier is worse than 2. So that means the person who's high ranked gets divided by 2, the person who's low ranked gets multiplied by 2.
Let's have a look. Drogo is
Anyway,
Drogo is the worst commander. I just want to see how bad this is. And is it Howland at the top?
I think Howland's number 1. Howland or Rob?
Yeah, so it's an 11% chance to win.
11% chance to win. And that's if you're equal quality players. Anyway.
Yeah.
It could possibly combine with the changing faction, as Chris Eustace is saying.
Mm-hmm.
I did think about it. I think we'll give it a trial run at the 50-point event if we organise that very soon. Mickey Stir could decide to, but I feel like he's relatively committed to the 1550 cutoff, and it is definitely. It's just the two systems are trying to achieve the same thing, which is they're trying to make people innovate and create new lists and play whatever is supposed to make you able and want to play new things, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree, and I can't ever fault him for that. I can't ever fault the intent there behind it. One thing I did say
absolutely.
though. And it would be unfortunate, and we saw it a little bit with the 30-point tournament that Makista run, which was a great event as well. But we essentially had top-rated commanders picked for factions that were off-meta. So we saw Courtney Penrose picks.
See, that's the interesting thing about the ELO system, is that what it really does is it tells you not to play Howland and Rob. It doesn't say don't play Starks. Like lots of people want to play Starks without playing the Howland Rob 10 activation lists.
I want to play like decent, like relatively
want to play
rubbish.
They want to play Great John. They want to play Brynden. They want to play whatever, and they are acceptably rated such that you could enter them into these events. People want to play Lannisters, but don't want to have to play that Tyrion High Sparrow combo, like, and it's all grayscaled because that's what the ELO is. It's like, it's not just like a hard cutoff of like, this is too good, you can't use it. It's scaled from like how strong to how weak am I. So it's a really elegant system. So I hope that it will work and that people will try it.
All right, so definitely sign up to the battle on Whispering Sound. Run by.
Well, I mean, it's popular. It's not. People are definitely up for it, and there are plenty of people who are higher than 1550 rated in it. So it's not like it's turned off all the 1550 rated players from entering.
Chris Eustace has completely done the name change to Elite Teddy now, hasn't he? Oh, disappointed. But no, normal names, I've seen Winter is Coming before, Gamma, Deoxys, big man, Makista, obviously, Francesco, Wop, Bloodraven, big man, Furioku, Elite Teddy, Tony Stark. Yeah, all the names you expect, a couple of new ones. Donovan, who I believe is that Van?
I don't. No, it's not. It's not. It's not Van Van.
Right, it's one of Van Van's mates.
Don't know Van. No, I believe it's from the same group as Van Van.
It is. Yeah,
Makista did ask me about it because you're not the first person who thought that was Van Van being a bit cheeky, but no, they've played in real tabletop tournament in the league together, so I'm pretty sure that they're two different people.
Fair enough. But yeah, so check that event out. We'll keep going. We're getting near the end of today's thing. Got one in France.
Way over time.
Yeah, no, way over time. It's because I was late getting back from work. Tonio Ludi. I'm going to butcher that. Must be a French physical.
The French keep creating. I need to kind of talk to the French community. I'm glad that the Masters is on and it has a load of people in. The French keep creating events and then not signing any people up to them and not running it through the site. So either they try it and don't like it, or something's not quite happening there. They either just think it's worth having it on the site so people can see it, or what. But in the end, they don't seem to. Grusilog says, when am I going to merge Masara and Furioku? Very interesting point, actually. You know what? So let's talk it, because he's brought it up. Okay. Very interesting point. If you go to the player rankings, you will see that Masara and Furioku have almost the same rating. Do you know why? Because ELO is very, very clever, and it rates you at how good a player you are. So they both find the same final answer. What's actually really, really interesting is if you look, that Masara has a significantly higher win rate than Furioku. Significantly so.
96%.
But he only plays Starks, right? And because he only plays Starks, he's supposed to win 96% of his games. I mean, not 96, but he's supposed to win about 90, 85% of his games when you play Starks. And he always plays Howland and Rob. So he's supposed to be winning 90% of his games. So he wins 96% of his games. And the system goes, okay, you're good, but not that good. Whereas when he plays as Furioku, it's when he's playing as everything that's not Starks. And tell you what, the system says, you know what? You're still just the same as good. Like, it still gets to the same answer. If anything, it's like the almost perfect test for the fact that the yellow system is working, because it keeps finding the same number for him. And there is no benefit. The most important part is there's no benefit, because it will find your rank after some amount of games and it will be roughly correct.
Yeah.
Also, and like, is it a good advertisement for your system? Yeah, I guess it is. More importantly, it's almost impossible to merge those accounts. Once you've started using an ELO system, so like I can't add their scores together, because that's not how it works, because it finds a balance point for a given person. If anything, the correct balance point for Ryoku, if I merged them, would be to average the two scores.
Yep.
And he would get an average between them both. So Sheila says Masara is for tournaments, Furioku is for testing. Maybe. I've seen Furioku enter tournaments, I believe.
No, he enters.
Masara is only when he plays Starks, right?
Yeah, it is. It's
Or at
Stark.
least that's what he roughly said to me when I
This is
asked
his
him why he had two
Starks.
accounts.
This is his Stark account. It's exclusively based Starks.
Yeah. But then again, maybe he exclusively believes that only Starks can win in tournaments.
Well, he does actually believe that Starks. Free folk
Yeah.
don't win tournaments. That's the thing he always tells me.
But anyway, so I think it is super super interesting actually because I did recently just look at like his actual statistics on his two accounts. Multiple times the two accounts have gone up and down, and they always meet back together at roughly the same point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you can achieve the same thing with a 77% win rate with Free Folk and other factions, and I believe he's played other things. But if you do it with Starks, the system is so sure that Starks are a better faction and it's easier to win with them that you're going to have to get a 20% higher win rate. Yeah. And it comes to the same answer. It still finds the same solution. I mean, it's a lot more complex than that. It's also considering what quality player he's playing against, what ranking that player is, what commander they're playing, what commander he's playing. It's a complex thing. But do I think that smurfing is an issue? So there is, it's definitely an issue if you're capping players based on ELO and giving disadvantages to high-rated players. It's very disadvantageous in the same sense as real smurfing, which is if people aren't aware, like maybe not everybody's aware. We've gone super over time, but you know what? We're just on a roll. Smurfing, for those who aren't aware, is very common in online computer games that you don't have to pay to buy. So things that have like free to play structures, even ones that are cheap to buy, CS:GO and any kind of like Dota and LoL and all of them, where you can just create a new account. And it's basically people who want to either mess around or just want to go and win against people who aren't very good. So you begin a new account, which is low rated, and then you beat a load of players in around that low rating because the system keeps pairing you up against low rated players. Now, this doesn't really have this problem because it doesn't automatically pair you with somebody of your own rating. But it is very, very disadvantageous to your opponent if I'm a very, very good player, but pretend to be somebody with a very low rating. If I go and beat you, the system's going to think that you just got beaten by a bad player, and it's going to cost you loads of points. So effectively, nobody should want anybody to be creating multiple accounts. Nobody should want people to be smurfing in this case. People definitely shouldn't want people to make new accounts and enter their tournaments because that's very negative to the other people in the tournament who then can't say, I'm not playing that person. Like, they're twice as highly rated as that in reality. So Furioku has done a disservice to other players when he made that second account. In the period of time it took him to get from 1500 to his real rating, all those people got somewhat robbed out of their ranking because he was a good player, but it wasn't. Teddy's really the Viper. I would really love you to be.
That'd be incredible.
So all those players, it didn't reflect the fact that that person was that good. But it's also slightly true of anybody who's new to the site. Some people are very, very good, but never use the site. Then they come on the site, start using it, but they're not 1500 rated. They play against Larks all the time. They're better than him. They're actually really 1950 rated. The system can't know until it's seen a certain amount of results. But the point is the more results you give it, the more accurate it is. So stop resetting that by creating a new account. You're just stealing points off all the people that you play.
It happened with Rossi, really? Right? When Rossi first entered the league, because he was quite late to the TTS scene, and he plays a lot with Larks. And he's a very good player, and he skyrocketed up in the process.
And took Masters. A lot of points off Larks. Larks dropped from the #1 spot because he was losing points to other German players who previously weren't registered on the account, but they were very, very good tournament players, very, very competitive group. And then when they come, the system's like, this guy's some random 1500 and he just beat this player. You can't be that good, and drops them loads.
Yeah.
And then it balances out once Rossi starts playing other players. Larks keeps playing other players. Larks achieves his rating by being very, very good and recording lots of results, and playing in lots of tournaments. And like I believe he's getting close to one of the highest amount of submissions now. I think Deoxys still has the most by a significant margin. I think he's
Larks
over 100.
81. Deoxys is probably somewhere stupid like 500.
Deoxys is right down really low now these days. He's been losing a lot recently. And similarly, if you're low rated, there is no point in creating a new account that's 1500 rated, because you will bounce back very, very quickly if you start winning. And if you don't and just make a new 1500 rated account, then it will just go negative again. Like, it will just go below 1500.
Oh, what a big man. 122 games.
That's a guy who records all the games he plays and plays a lot of tournaments. That's a whole different. That's just more ELO chat, more stuff. It's really, it's really interesting, Like, it's actually really, I really like it, but I don't think anyone else is quite as interested in the maths as I am. But it's a really elegant system.
No, I love the maths. The problem is I've heard you talk about it enough to know how it pretty much works.
Yeah, I just need to know need to know when to shut up about it.
You need to find someone else who's not heard about it, or someone who doesn't understand it, because then you can explain it. But yeah,
got anything else?
I love the ELO.
We got any last bit?
Western Warriors, one-day event, local thing. TSA talks about Wolves Howling. The Tourney Ground Esteros, which I think is another French tournament. We won't stop by that. We talked about the World Cup. Another dance avec une danse avec les.
That one's been on the site for ages.
Yeah. Next year. Yeah. And Adepticon's still up there, big men. We will see how all that goes. A shout out to, obviously, the TSL again for finishing up. The shout out to the French, not the French, the Spanish, who've got their ridiculous system, which we talked about last week.
They're not on the site yet. For whatever reason, they've decided that. So if anybody's not aware, it's 150 people or so they claim at the moment. It's got like 6 sponsors now. I mean, it's actually Asmodee Spain and CMON are both officially sponsoring it, along with loads of other people. So they've done a load of work. 150 people, really interesting. Grishilog making what is ELO video. That's about every third stats chat. Every third stats chat is what is ELO. Anyway, 150 people. They're playing 11 regional events, which are actually leagues, and players will play games as and when it suits them. Basically, 1v1 matches. Very COVID safe, very COVID intelligent, shall we call it? Which then will qualify them for a central event, which will happen, I think it's running right through to February in the end.
I think so, yeah.
Part of the new tournament features where you can swap commander lists, and I even added faction, even though most people didn't request it, is partly because the Spanish asked during their league, they want people to be able to change their commanders. So that's why I made that for them. But yeah, they're not actually on the site yet. It is advertised on the site, but for whatever reason, they're putting up the 11 regional events just before they go live. So yeah, hopefully we'll see them all spring up. We'll see what's happening in Spain. We'll see what people are running as lists. I think the regional part, the 150 player part, which will be overall technically the biggest tournament that's ever run, ever, for as long as Ice and Fire. Slightly different format to, like Masters of Westeros, obviously, which was all run over a weekend, and this run over months. It's actually an almost identical format to the World Cup, just run on a national scale. We'll see what the Spanish are doing, but it is quite participation based. So, I think not necessarily every regional will be super competitive. But I assume that there will be good players in every regional, and then when it comes to the final part, that you are getting really competitive players that have really qualified for it. So
the best of the best.
Really look forward to that bit.
Yeah. All right then. We will end our discussion here. We've talked about a lot of things today, including ELO chat, which you love. Bit of talk about dragons, a bit of talk about everything. And yeah. Any last words, Carlo?
Everybody's probably seen the Kickstarter, but there's a Kickstarter.
There is
Tobo
a Kickstarter.
Mott's Armory.
Yeah, Tobo Mott's Armory.
Looks fancy stuff.
It does.
it looks pretty popular actually. I think he's about 30% funded, maybe
Yeah, I'm just gonna load up
off
the
2 days.
Kickstarter up.
Um,
He
yeah, that looks
is
roughly, yeah,
10.5 grand for, yeah, it's about a third. It's a third of the way.
yeah, from like 2 days. Kickstarter's always slump in the middle, so we'll see. It looks like it'll get funded. It's not like it hasn't like smashed its target in the first day or whatever. I'm sure there'll be a ton of people who come on it in the last week, in the last couple of days. We'll see where it ends up, but looks like good quality stuff. And
Have you funded
yeah,
it?
what's that?
Are you funded it?
Not yet. I am deciding
I'm in the
what.
same boat.
Shall we? I would say I'm probably deciding how many of the many factions I want a box for. I'm more interested in the boxes than the tokens myself, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I do like the boxes. I think the boxes look really good.
The tokens I can take or leave, to be honest, personally.
Yeah, like only because I've already kind of got some custom tokens and stuff like that.
It's not just that, but you'd need to magnetize the bases as well properly. You know, the system's all there. It's all in there for you to do, but you know, it's not just as simple as it might look out in the first instance.
But the cases I absolutely gobsmacked by. I mean, it's not cheap, but I definitely think it's worth the price.
Yeah, definitely.
So
definitely,
I want it to succeed because I want to back it, and I want it to be successful, and I also want it to get to like the free card back stretch goals, because I think lots of those card backs look really nice.
These ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just the thing that I like.
Right.
I've got the stuff from Blitz Minis, which I still need to give you yours, don't I? Your Lannister and Greyjoy ones. These are really good. I've got all my Free Folk sleeved up and everything. It's great. All my shiny Free Folk cards in my nice, absolutely brilliant from Blitz Minis. But actually, what I really like about these, it gives you the tarot cards as well, the tarot size ones for the units, and that's phenomenal because you need them. Just need them, and it gives you the alternatives as well, the likes of.
I like the Tully one. You know, I don't even like Starks, but
the Tully,
like
the Tully card
one.
back is incredible. Tully's just lovely blue and red comparison color.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest with you, I would have preferred better Free Folk ones, but hey ho. I like the Free Folk dice. That's
you've already got Free Folk ones. I think the dice are quite nice.
Yeah, I like the Free Folk dice.
Especially, there's a lot there. The between the tokens, the dice, the card backs, the boxes, the unique stuff, and yeah, I really hope it's successful. You know, and I hope that it unlocks the other things and stuff like that. And really, the question is whether or not I'm going to buy a load just to give away in tournaments or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that'd be a top notch prize.
Definitely. All right then, guys. We will leave it there for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We will catch you again at 7 o'clock next week. Same time, same place. We'll obviously post about it all in the coming week. And if you want to come by, stop by on the channel for to join us. If you've got something interesting to talk about, be it a tournament or you just want to come and join us. You know, Carlo doesn't bite too hard. So we're more than happy to have anyone on if they want to be on as a guest. Just let us know. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for coming down and joining us again, or watching us on repeat, of course, to all of our friends over in Australia who often do that, and from around the world. And we'll catch you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.